The other thing you have to do when you're dealing with the left is you got to be willing to lead, and you got to be willing to get ahead of where public opinion is. And you know that there's going to be blowback when you do that. I can tell you, since I've been governor, I have not taken a single poll about any individual issues at all. And my view on the polls is just not even that they're not accurate, although I can take a poll of this room. If I phrase it differently, I can probably swing the results 20 points in a different direction. So you always have that. But the polls, they give you at best a static analysis. They don't give you what would happen if you actually articulate a way forward, a vision, you execute on that, and then you produce results. Guess what happens? People will come and they'll be supportive of you. And I go back to, look back at my time, the best decisions I've made, particularly about making sure businesses were open during COVID, the schools, I forced the schools to open against the wishes of the left, all these things. They were not popular with the left, but they were not even that popular with Republicans at the time, because there was a lot of hysteria going on about COVID back in 2020 in those early weeks and months. And so I looked at it, I said, look, I've been looking at this data for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. I'm confident that this is the way. I was very lonely. There weren't very many people that were willing to say that, but you got to do it. I took immense amount of heat. People would tell me, oh, you know, you just got to do something. Just impose masks on people so they see you're doing something. I'm like, I don't believe in imposing masks on people. First of all, I don't think the masks work. Second of all, even if they did, who am I to muzzle you? You're an adult. You can make your own decisions about this. So I was not going to do that. I wasn't going to do those things. And it was like, I'm getting hit. They would actually send Fauci down to Florida, and he would give these interviews on like local TV, bashing, oh, Governor DeSantis is reckless for putting kids in school so early. And you know what? And I honestly thought after like 2 weeks of kids being in school and no one was dropped, I thought, you know, everyone's going to have kids in school, and yet they didn't do it. It was hysteria. So I was getting beat down. I didn't have a lot of air cover during those times, but I knew what I needed to do was the right thing. And if you can't do the right thing in a crisis situation where people's livelihoods are at stake, their futures are at stake, if you're not willing to stand strong then what the hell are you in office for anyways? So we did it. We held strong. Now nobody will admit that they opposed me on any of those things. You know, the teachers' unions actually sued me saying schools needed to be closed and I was being reckless to force them open. They will not admit that they opposed having kids in school now looking back. People oppose me. You know, Fauci, he hated restaurants. And so we not only had restaurants saved in Florida, I had all the New York restaurants. They all moved to South Florida because they could operate and they made a fortune. And so people look at that. But Fauci would always be saying how dangerous it is for all this. And it got to the point where you go to like Chicago and they would say outdoor dining. You can't eat indoor, but you can eat outdoor. Well, that's fine. I mean, first of all, I'm not sure that that's true from an epidemiological perspective, but fine. Like, okay, eat outside. And, you know, if you're eating outside in Chicago in August, it's nice, and I'm sure you have a good time. Probably a little bit different story in January. So what would they do? They would build outside, they would build these like little igloos where people would go in. And I'm like, what the hell's the difference then? And they thought that they were following the science. So that's where we were on that. But we were right on that. And guess what happened? 6 months later, 9 months later, the polls shifted. And I went from somebody that they were saying was had lit himself on fire politically by doing all this stuff to being somebody that won the largest Republican victory in the history of the entire state of Florida in 2022. So you can do that. So you got to